Yes, Women's Day week. I'm the only person left in the world celebrating it, even though I'm only 25% woman for some reason. But before I bring my beautiful guest on, I need to quickly tell everyone, especially people living in Mumbai, stop this nonsense about lockdown, and sending WhatsApps on lockdown. There is no lockdown. I am very close to the chief minister. Matlab, I don't know who he is, but he's just 3 buildings away. So there is no lockdown. There will be no lockdown. There may be what they call partial lockdown. 2-3 घंटे के लिए ये बंद करेगा, वो बंद करेगा. That's all symbolic. So don't take that seriously. We have to work. You will not take this as a holiday. We've already had 1 year off. That's my warning to everybody. Don't use the word lockdown ever again. It's worse than if you use the word lockdown with F instead of L. It's worse than that. Okay, lockdown. Never again. And now let's go to something more beautiful, something more talented, something which will help us feel more positive about ourselves. We have a lovely guest, Wajiha Naqvi. I hope I've pronounced that correctly.
Yes, you have.
Wajiha, but I presume you must be Punjabi, so you must be having a pet name like a Bobo or Lolo, which is easy for me.
Well, I have my Instagram handle, which is Gulabo, and my grandfather used to call me that. Gulabo, and there are lots of Bollywood songs on that as well.
Gulabo. It just sounds very, very romantic, and I'm feeling uncomfortable immediately. Your grandfather would not like it at all. It's one thing for him to say it to you, and then some idiot. And in the times we live in, where we are supposed to not be friends, so this is not going to anyone. Huh? This is very private. Yeah. The powers that be in the world. We thought Trump was the only problem. He lost the election, but everything has remained. Nothing has changed. By the way, Gulabo ji, आपके पीछे बहुत सुंदर painting तो है. Is it MF Hussain? MF Hussain painting?
No, actually, this is my mother.
But it's a horse. He was famous for horses.
It is a horse. Yes, that's true. In fact, there's a Pakistani artist that's also known for Mashkoor Raza, who paints horses. This is painted on silk. And my mother studied fine art, so this is something that she's fond of doing in her spare time.
Wow. See, we've already brought Indo-Pakistan ties better closer. We have MF Hussain, you have Raza. Both are painting horses. Of course, let's warn people listening, don't go with your brush and paint a horse outside unnecessarily. They actually paint pictures of horses. You should be very clear about it. Some idiot in my part of the world will just take a paintbrush and go, oh, goda idhar aa. Tuck. Don't do that. Do that to your neighbor and never mention lockdown. Before we start, I must warn you, I talk too much, so you please, anytime you want, jump in. But how is it there in Karachi in terms of this lockdown fear and all?
I was telling Krish that there's no lockdown here. Like, what's the lockdown? We don't believe in lockdown.
Lovely. Wow.
Yeah, our Prime Minister kept saying smart lockdowns, but that basically meant no lockdowns. So we barely had them. Yeah. And we've still successfully beaten COVID compared to India. That's what I was also like laughing about. That we didn't really do anything, but we were still managed to control it.
So for our politicians, the yardstick is only, are you better than India or Pakistan? Nobody really cares about, as long as I to bach gaya, to ho gaya. Our work is done. We have gone one above the neighbor.
Exactly.
At the risk of getting into trouble here, I must tell you that as a boy growing up, I was such a huge fan of Imran Khan. And I really hope that once he came on, everything, because he's just, that alpha male and the presence that he has, he's a superstar. There's no question about that.
Yeah,
so I was hoping that things would get better. Maybe they will.
We all hope the same. And a lot of people had very high hopes and aspirations. But unfortunately, being a charismatic, good-looking leader doesn't make you a good leader, actually. It can, he has his own sort of issues.
To be fair, playing cricket is one thing because, he could bat, he could bowl, he was one of the greatest skippers in the history of the game. But Pakistan or a country is not the same thing because there's just so many forces pulling you, pushing you. He can't just be dominant like he was in the cricket field. I think that's the big problem they all have.
Also, I think mistaking cricket for actually politics, it's not the same thing, right? So he probably thought, and that's another criticism, that he thinks that this is a game of cricket, but politics is far dirtier and far bigger sort of game. And, it's, really not everybody can sort of take that on. You have to be cut of a certain fabric, I suppose.
Yeah. And also subcontinental politics is another level. Of, intrigue and planning and oh God,
and propaganda and
PR, internet work that our side of the border is very, very good at. For example, I wouldn't.
Yeah, your media, we have a lot to learn from you guys.
Really? I don't know. Do we have a media? I think there's also a rumor that. Okay, let's not. let's talk about the good things in the world, which is your art.
But Cyrus, I'm so excited to be here talking to you because I was telling Antikrish that I cannot believe this is happening. I've kind of grown up watching your show, watching you on MTV. Not that you're very old, but like but I mean, there was a time in Pakistan where we would get a lot of Indian channels, so like Sony and MTV and ZTV. And I remember every day coming back, like from school, I would regularly watch. And so you are like one of our favorites. By the way, in Pakistan, you are so loved. And everyone used to watch your show, MTV Bakra, and it was so fond of it. And I thought you were the coolest like VJ ever. And in fact, defined how we think of VJ. So I really wanted to be able to say that. So for me, it's like a great sort of honor to be able to speak to you. Yeah,
I'm feeling anxiety now. Tarif pe tarif. This is so unnecessary.
No, it's the truth. It's the truth. I mean, you are such an interesting and funny person to watch on television and very relatable. So I think for me, that's the reason why I wanted to be on this podcast, because I was like, I just want to laugh and chat with Cyrus. He's like such a cool guy.
So great. So what you're saying is that if I get thrown out of the country, I can go straight to Karachi and I can start again.
Absolutely. And you have a huge fan following here.
The cultures are so similar, it's not going to be that hard. Yeah?
Not at all. Not at all.
But I thought I gave away my age by mentioning Imran Khan growing up. Because Imran retired in 92 after the World Cup. So you can imagine that's my youth ends there. You can do the maths after that. I shouldn't have done that. That was stupid. Okay. I just want to quickly say, Wajiha, that Antariksh is his name, poor chap, our producer. But don't bother. Don't ever try to. Don't try. Just call him Silvery. Good
I'm
Punjabi
so sorry.
boy.
I did. Okay.
Just call him Silvery. That's his pet name. Hence,
Oh, you know how they say he's Punjabi, so we'll say like pra.
Pra, of course. You can just call him Pra. That's fine. Yeah. Pra. At the moment, his chest is such, he's wearing a pra. Yeah. That's me. Listen,
That's too much information.
Too much. We brought India, Pakistan together, and now we started sexism, and this is the fallout of our dialogues. We can either save the country or go be politically incorrect. This is the only way.
I think me and you should be leading that dialogue for peace building.
If you get 5 guys from Karachi and Mumbai to hang out, there'll be no problem. Or Lahore and Delhi, no problem. Yeah. It's such a joke, actually, that people don't understand how because I have roomed with a Pakistani kid in 1994. So I know just how easy going. I mean, you forget. You don't even realize we're from separate countries after 20 minutes.
I mean, like, because we're not, right? We're literally the same.
We're not, yeah.
We're from the same land. So, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
we speak the same language. We have the same history. We just cross borders. And then eventually generations, people became a country. You guys became Indians. We became Pakistanis. But essentially, we're the same people. So,
and you kept the fast bowlers and we kept the batsmen, and that's how it's going at the moment. Okay, I won't start a cricket fight.
I don't know much about cricket, so I won't be able to comment on that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, I'll believe you. That's one thing
Now this is real treason. It's one thing to be pro-India or pro-Pakistan, but to not know cricket, both countries will ban you. You have to be very careful.
That's true.
Okay, listen, we have to talk about you. We're just talking about everything else, and suddenly the 45 minutes will be over. So let's start at the beginning first. I want to tell you, I'm a trained Hindustani classical vocalist myself.
Oh, wow.
Of course not.
Okay.
How can you believe that? There's no way. I had a crush on a girl.
Yeah.
No, I had a crush on a girl in college who was a singer, trained singer. And so she used to take us for her performances. I mean, like all the guys would go together and all. That was my only, and I had to sit through it. And I must have really been in love. It was not easy. If you don't have a discerning ear and all that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. You were amongst the backing vocalists of Coke Studio 11 and amongst the leading singers in Coke Studio as the years went along. You're also a graduate of New York University with a focus on anthropology of music, which will explain to us, all big words, particularly in South Asia. And you're currently visiting faculty at, I can't pronounce that, Szabist.
Szabist. No, I'm not currently. I used to be. At Indus and Szabist, yes.
They can't take action against us. We are in the subcontinent. हम कुछ भी कर सकते हैं यहाँ पे.
कुछ भी कह भी सकते हैं.
How many of us have not paid the scholarship fully and just come back? यार, जाने दो, हो गया. पढ़ाई तो हो गया.
नहीं, पढ़ाई नहीं. मैंने पढ़ाया है यहाँ पे. I was teaching here.
That's beautiful. But teaching where?
At these universities, the names that you're taking at Szabist and Indus Valley. These are universities in Karachi.
Oh, excellent. Okay. So
I was teaching for a short while, yes.
Okay, so now let's go back into your life and tell us how it all started. How did you become a singer? Do you have a family tradition of singing?
Not at all. No family tradition of singing. This is something I honestly just have happened to get into over the years. I've always been fond of singing as I was really young, and I would participate in like school concerts and college and sing. But Pakistan has a very interesting, I mean, in our society, generally, it's not encouraged to pursue music, especially for females. It's slightly like tabooed, I would say, in the sense. Now, of course, things have changed a lot. But also the idea that, how are you going to survive? How are you going to pay the bills? How are you going to sustain? Because there's no like really big industry in that sense for music. So I never consciously ever pursued music in that sense. And I grew up, grades at Chai and like studying and very straight laced like that. So I enrolled in a business school, went to Lahore, I was studying there. That's where I discovered my love for anthropology. And anthropology is essentially the study of culture and the study of society. And so that got me into, of course, I was pursuing music, but that got me into studying the context in which music originates, right? So, what is like the poetry of the subcontinent and why is it a certain way? Or, what is the significance of certain cultural traditions in our subcontinent, which is tied very closely to music. So that got me really interested in that subject, and I started to like explore that further. And again, I was not interested. I never really thought I would become a musician. And then after that, I got a scholarship to the New York University to pursue this further. So wahan pe bhi, I studied like the anthropology of sacred music. And so I did my thesis on Sufi music festivals, and I studied it from a more academic sort of perspective. And I was pursuing my singing more as a hobby, as a passion on the side. But I had never thought कि मैं इसको professionally explore करूँगी. Then when I moved back to Pakistan, because again, there are not many opportunities to be able to do something in the field that I've studied, to like actually pursue it, either in terms of cultural organizations or cultural centers. I mean, there's very limited avenues to be able to work for. So I joined the development sector. I did a lot of work on programming cultural activities. So I helped organize like different concerts, different events that were actually using music to bring communities together, because that's something I realized also with working in a place like Karachi, or Pakistan, which is so diverse, with having, like India, we have lots of different ethnicities and different religions as well, different language speakers. And so bringing communities together, like music was one way of being able to sort of do that, use that as a peace building tool. So I helped more on organizing activities that were focused around music. So I never really pursued my own singing. And that was the time that I started training in Hindustani classical music. And I have a teacher who I continue to train with. So I'm going to say that I am not a trained Hindustani classical singer, but I'm still learning, because it's just been sort of 3-4 years. And this is such a rich tradition that you can spend your entire lifetime and still be a student. So I would say that I'm still learning that.
But technically, you're a Pakistani classical vocalist who's learning Hindustani classical. So you're a Pakistani Hindustani classical vocalist. That's the full term. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Hindustani, applies across. But the word Hind itself is actually a Persian term, right? That the Persians kept for this land. Actually, it was Sindh first, Sindhu, which then became Hindu, and then to describe the people that lived here. And that term became Hindustan. So it was a Persian term that applied to this whole region, which includes, of course, Pakistan as well. So yeah, I struggle with saying Hindustani classical. So I always have to come up with different terms. Sometimes I'm thinking North Indian. Oh, that's your dog.
Doesn't like Hindustani classical.
He doesn't like me saying that Hindustani applies to Pakistan as well.
Yeah, that's what. But she's female, so we got the gender issue is sorted. Okay, she's empowered and does her own thing. Yeah. No, so just coming back, when you were in NYU, just to understand, you didn't practice, you weren't learning singing and music per se. You were learning only the anthropology of music, is it?
Yes.
So
though I was engaged in other sort of art forms, and I was interning at different cultural organizations, and I was trying to like get experience in how music can be used to organize projects that bring people together. So like more sort of event management and around music.
Exactly. So you were a music historian and then a music entrepreneur. That's where it
Yes,
went, right?
absolutely.
And this was in the background where you personally wanted to sing, but you didn't look at it as a serious thing.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
And
So
so
then
this
when
was something that was always like on the side, and I would perform at concerts, and I would perform as an amateur, sort of in an amateur capacity. But I never said that I want to become a full time. Also because I didn't want to just be able to do that. I want to do all these things, and I think that like that's perhaps one of my strengths, is that I'm able to look at these different aspects. Music is, not just singing. Music is like a whole, I mean, it's a whole industry. There's so many parts, components involved with it, right? So songwriting is a different thing, composition is a different thing, PR is a different thing. So these are all different skill sets that you need, and my interest was
lifting music is a different thing. We do that also. We just take music from another culture, country, and
yeah.
quietly. That's a great art, yeah. Then most of
P
us have a lot of
series
fun.
is very good at doing that.
I won't
They
take
need to
names,
start
but
giving courses.
that's what I'm saying. And then the whole fun is trying to find, there's so many Hindi songs from the past where we grew up, 50s, 60s, 70s. They're Beatles songs, they turned out to be. There
Yeah,
are
yeah,
songs
yeah,
from this. I
absolutely.
mean, they're hit bands and they're less hit bands. And if you go and trace them, so much inspiration that I feel change the subcontinent to inspiration stan, in a
Yeah.
sense. So, sorry, let's get back to, where did you get the courage to, you said you already were performing. So that means you were already trained, or you were just a good singer naturally who was singing?
I was naturally, I guess, in key, in tune,
So
and so
in the
I
Karachi
would,
birthday parties, to save money, they would ask you
yeah,
to sing instead of
family,
getting,
yeah, family
instead of,
events, school
uh,
concerts, small
because
sort of private like events that would happen.
so
I would just
Junoon and Ali Haider and all those guys would charge too much, and then they'll say, "Arey, no problem, Wajiha to hai. He doesn't want money, he wants exposure." I can see some dirty guy is sitting there and
oh
brokering
God.
all this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Huh?
well, a few, thankfully, not such bad sort of incidents, but yes, I did get to do a bit of that as well, and it was more like शौकिया जिसे कहते हैं ना कि मतलब oh, of
What
course
we
ये
call,
actually तो नहीं
yeah.
करना pursue. Then while I was doing a full-time job is when I was writing my own music. And so that is when I got sort of introduced to someone who was going to produce Coke Studio season 11. And I had met with him and I hung out with him. He's one of the producers for season 11. And so he had heard me. And then like many years later, he sort of just called me and said, would you like to, audition as one of the backing vocalists? So I said, yeah, I mean, of course, I'd love to do that. I went and I, got selected, and then I was part of season 11. And then I had been doing my full-time job for like 5 years. I wanted to kind of give that a break. I thought I had learned enough. Done enough. And so I wanted to move on to other things. And so I kind of just left that, and things just started like kind of happening on its own, to be honest. I started going back to, again, studying anthropology of music because I was, wanted to explore more of my music research and writing. So while I was training in North Indian classical music, I also was wanting to kind of write about this, because in Pakistan, again, we have very little patronage for the arts, right? And particularly a tradition which is so diverse and so rich. We know very little about it growing up. मतलब आप लोगों के side पे तो फिर भी you guys are kind of aware of that, or it's kind of part of your very sort of social fabric, and it's very much encouraged. In Pakistan, music is not necessarily encouraged in that same manner, especially classical music. There seems to be some sort of distance, seems to be, it's very deliberate sort of conditioning and brainwashing that's been done by the state and by our countries, and at a very deep-rooted educational level. And so these things I started to kind of explore, and I said, oh my God, there's so much that I don't know that's coming from even the Islamic tradition. Being a Muslim, I don't know so much about this. And हम हमेशा, Pakistan में एक misconception है कि Indian classical music is, comes from Hinduism or the Hindu like religion necessarily.
Religious,
Or it comes
yeah.
there were all these misconceptions growing up that we've heard and we've never really kind of delved into. So for me, that was really fascinating as I continued to study, and then I wanted to write about it. So that's the path that I started to then somehow take. And eventually I got interviewed for Coke Studio the last season to be part of their. Sorry, Cyrus, am I
No,
talking
I
too
just want to
much?
interrupt. No, you're talking beautifully. But my only question, because you keep saying Coke Studio, I tried to audition for it once. I know it started with MTV India, and I did a beautiful song that I put together, composed myself, called Pepsi. And okay, it was called I Love Pepsi, and for some reason they just wouldn't entertain me. I just want to
Yeah.
shout.
Did you figure out why?
No, you said the lyrics were not correct or something. I mean, उसका क्या मतलब है? Art में कुछ correct or incorrect होता ही नहीं. You know,
हाँ,
I
I
mean,
know
it should
exactly.
be.
उनको बोले कि आपने पेप्सी
हाँ,
जो है इतना abstract term है, why didn't you?
वो
I mean, when
actually
I was saying I meant Coke, right? So didn't you clarify that?
ना उर्दू में, ना हिंदी में, ना गुजराती में, ना I mean, there is no word like Pepsi. Okay, now some Punjabis are calling their kid Pepsi, but that's another story. It's not quite the same. It's just some kids are little tagra. Yeah, what can you do?
Or
Like
you know,
silvery.
in Arabic, the pay is bay, right?
Yeah,
So
they
it'd
don't
be
have a P, right?
babs. Yeah, so the bay is babsi. Like
Because
Pakistan would be Pakistan.
yeah, so we have Irani antecedents. So we have Parvez, for example, which is
Yeah,
not really. So you'll not get that same Dubai. That name will be only in Iran. It's
yes,
quite fascinating that we didn't even
yeah.
know these kind of things. So
Like
the
the
moment
V sound,
yeah,
V sound is very Persian, V, and Arabic is W. So my name is actually with the W sound, which is W, Wajiha. And
Wajiha.
in W, no, it's Wajiha, but Persians would say V, Vajihe,
And if you're just
Vajiha.
tuning into the broadcast, just remember we are adults because of what did Bible saying, Wajiha, and you're correcting me, Wajiha. So what do you prefer? Because Persian is also a beautiful language, so it just sounds lovely.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I'm okay with both, as long as you don't call me like Susan or something. That
What happened in New York? What happened? These.
Oh, it was awful. I mean, people would just, I would say, "Oh, hi, I'm Vajiha," and they would be like, "Regina, nice to meet you." And I
Oh
said,
God.
"What's my name?" Sounding like Regina, but I got Regina a lot for some reason.
But Western imperialism is best at names. They don't even try. After 2 minutes, they make up like a Regina, and that's it. Like
Yeah.
I'm amazed at how quickly they give up and say, "Okay, we will re-christen the guy." Now your poor guy's name is whatever it is, and it's the Munawar becomes
Regina forever.
yeah, whatever. It's just unbelievable. Yeah, I of
But
course.
you wouldn't have that issue, I'm sure.
That's because
Cyrus
now,
is a
yeah.
famous Persian name also.
So
Cyrus.
Cyrus the Great, but they
Yeah.
don't know it from that because it's also in the Bible. It's also become like a universal name. The African American community keeps it a lot. So
Hmm.
yeah, I was quite stunned to see Darius. We pronounce it like that, but it's Darius and Cyrus and all that.
Darius. Yeah.
Yeah, but so those names were there, and you would hear someone calling someone, and I'd be like, it's not. These are Parsi or Persian names for us
Yeah.
growing up. So
Yeah.
I turn around and I see this 6'5" African American guy shout, "Hey Darius, come here!" I'm like, "Oh, okay." But it's good. It's good. So the name gets around. I'm happy. Yeah. All right. Let's get back before we take a break. So you started singing and started performing, but you're saying Hindustani, okay, classical music, whatever the hell it is, Indian classical, or let's call it to include
Indian
Pakistan,
music, just call it, I
Indian
guess,
music.
Indian music. Huh?
So in Pakistan, you said we have a market back home where I'm from, that one line behind you.
Yeah.
But there is a market, obviously, when you started singing, because you're doing shows and people know who you are. So there is a market. So even though we had partition and everything else, Indian music on both sides of the border is something that is enjoyed.
Of course, absolutely. This is because this is something that's in our blood. It's in our daily rituals. It's in our culture. So we cannot get away from it, right? It's in our religion also to a certain extent, right? So a lot of your Sufi poetry and all is all kind of has been passed down musically through a lot of these oral traditions and a lot of what sort of music that happens at shrines. You don't call it music. Maybe that's not the term. It's a Western term, saying music, but it is sounds and it is there are melodies and composition. So music to bhara hua hai hamari, I think, soul mein, sabke subcontinent mein. But I would say as an industry, as a very developed industry, in the sense that how you guys have also Bollywood in that sense, we don't have such a developed industry. And of course, Coke Studio has changed that. And there are a lot of corporate shows that happen. And suddenly there's been a rise of that. So that happened also as of like 2008. But even before that, it's not like a very developed sort of industry. There has been music, but it's not gotten that same sort of patronage, perhaps, that India gives to its music industry. And especially the classical tradition, which is like a very small niche within the music space.
But even, I'm sure in India, it's a small niche. Like I told you, went to my first Carnatic or Hindustani vocal performance, and, not being used to it, it was, may I say, terrifying. And, the girl was just so pretty. I withstood 1.5, 2 hours of that. But people around me, the discerning ears, the trained ears, I mean, they were in a spell. So, I mean, it was just like, I was at a German concert and I can't understand German or whatever. It was like that. But the rest really were enraptured. So I know that there is a proper market, and small or big, in both sides, obviously.
Yes, of course. There is, definitely.
But you haven't come here, right? I mean, with all these problems, I suppose not that easy.
No, it isn't, but I'd love to. I mean, I'm hoping that COVID sort of subsides.
I'll give you a
and
number.
then I definitely.
I'm giving you a number. Take it down. A.R. Rahman, personal friend. Just call him. He's very soft-spoken, so you talk to him loudly and all that. Put it on speakerphone. You won't hear anything otherwise.
Who doesn't know A.R. Rahman?
But up to a few years back, yeah, he is. We had so many Pakistani artists. I mean, I was lucky enough to actually hang out. I hung out with Nusrat. And let me tell you, and his son, Rahat as well. Yeah. And wow, what voices, boss. They were like, Western classical singers, the power and the very tenor of that voice, I remember some other Indian bands were performing and they did a sound test. And Nusrat was waiting quietly and he was breathing heavily as usual and all that. And his 5 chelas were saying something in the, the thick Punjabi accent where half the mouth is used.
What year was this?
Somewhere in the 2000s before he passed away, obviously. But at that time, we had Junoon coming, Ali Haider coming. I just mentioned
he passed away in 98. So
98, okay, before that then, But and then Rahat also came back and he's also got a powerful voice. So
he's sung a lot of songs for Bollywood also.
Yeah, it was all really easy. Trust me, no one even thought India, Pakistan. They were called by their names. And then, the quality of the concert went up when you had a Nusrat or a Rahat and just went up like if they've come, like VIP. But I'll just tell you quickly. So there was a band performing, a rock band, and in Hindi, and they're very good band. And they check this, that, how they are, how you guys are, musicians, checking everything. I've never understood why they do that. They do this motion to the sound guy, like something treble has to go 1 inch, whatever, and it just sounds exactly the same. And that was, it's ridiculous. That was done. And then I think Rahat or the Southern, I can't remember, I'm so old. One of them comes on stage and all he does is take 2 notes. There was one bull-like note, then the next bull-like note, and then he left. That was that was enough for him. He didn't want to waste time and come back and perform later. But when he took those 2 notes, the power was such, just blew all the other contestants on the stage, they were all psyched out. In a good way. But it was like, perhaps what it must have been like to watch Don Bradman bat. You don't want to go after that. So it was literally like that. All of us, it was a moment, our hair was standing. We were like,
wow.
And he wasn't being arrogant. They just casually took 2 notes just to make sure his voice was there and went off. Yeah. And all for half an hour, 1 hour, the bands before us struggling with treble and bass and all not. But they didn't. They were quiet.
Anything. Yeah, they were only dependent on their solo instrument, which was their voice.
And again, no arrogance. They just did it like a matter of fact. That's all. Yeah, absolutely. The complete confidence that I'm just going to sing. I don't care who's singing before or after. I'm just going to sing. And I loved it. I felt, they remind me of Mike Tyson boxing. Just comes into the ring and does his thing. I hate to give you this analogy. But yeah.
That's the thing. But the thing is that they have been immersed in music since childhood. And this is all that they do. And this used to happen, of course, when there was patronage by the Mughals, pre-British times, when you were allowed to just immerse yourself in training in the art of music and poetry and the sur and the tal. And that was literally all you did. Now, musicians have to do so many other things that they can't even focus on the only thing that they should be doing, which is the art itself. And that's where you see the difference then, and that's why maybe like to become a full-time singer is a real sort of serious consideration, which I'm saying, if I just dedicate myself to that, then who is going to do so many of the other things that now musicians have to do to pay the bills or to be able to get shows? But you would just train forever and go and sing in front of like in the darbar, and your badsha would, kind of just pay for your all your stipend, and you were like set, and you just had to like practice your music. That was what you did.
Now there'll be an article in Karachi or Mumbai saying Wajiha anti-democracy wants kings to come back, monarchy back to patronize singers.
No, we really don't. We've seen how that went with Meghan Markle's saga.
Wow,
So
wow.
we cannot.
We're running out of time. I want to get into your whole
Yeah.
other part of your life, which is the scroll and writing. But just one last thing I want to say. Just missing that part of the world where the artist was just an artist, and the technology and the marketing and all this, was like in the background. Now it seems to be part of everyone. As you said, this generation growing up, they need to know all this. They need to push themselves out there, figure out. We just miss the artist coming, performing, and going. And perhaps he's a complete moron. He can't even walk properly. He can't do anything. Can't even wash his clothes. But when he sings, it's like God is singing. I just miss that sometimes. I'm just thinking,
absolutely.
I don't know if you agree. But yeah, come on, let's talk a little bit about the scroll article, because as usual, I was told we have to talk about this, and I've gone over time. So this is, which I can't find now, the article. So you'll have to help us.
Okay. So the scroll article again comes from this interest of mine in the same Hindustani classical music tradition, but when India and Pakistan came into form, I study from a teacher who's actually a qawwali practitioner. Okay. But they come from, and they trace their discipleship back to Amir Khusro. And they're also trained in the Khyal, which is one of the primary sort of vocal genres of North Indian classical music. So I was very intrigued with these two traditions being practiced by the same person. In my case, personally, my teacher was coming from this tradition, which was taking both these art forms. And so that got me to investigate, and I, kind of realized that it was just post-partition that somehow qawwali became associated with the music of Pakistan, and the Khyal became associated with India. And for some reason, it's always been projected as separate forms of music, whereas the source of it comes from the same, right? So qawwali music, for instance, I'm sure in India, and I've talked to a lot of musicians in India as well, who said that it's not given that same status. It's considered devotional music, Sufi music, semi-classical, or etc. But qawwals were real practitioners of very high art forms of classical, which is the Khyal. That's what they were trained in. So for me, this was something very interesting. And then I thought that I must write about this and like sort of, play my part in sharing this perspective from the Pakistani side. And I think it applied to India as well. So Scroll sort of picked it up and also shared that. And I think I've gotten a lot of interest since then. And I've been noticing that this is something that's happened because we want to separate ourselves. And I said we're the same people, but we need to find something to separate ourselves, right? So we create these things, these differences to make us like me Pakistani and you Indian. Varna actually koi cheez different nahi hai. But we have to create these differences. And so similarly, qawwali and Khyal were created in that same manner by the state. And so radios also, all India radio used to promote like certain type of songs. In Pakistan, qawwali was projected during Zia-ul Haq, because it's devotional music. So a lot of like religious sort of music was kind of promoted that way. But qawwali has also a huge range of other forms of poetry as well. That's not always promoted in that same manner.
Wajiha, you mentioned actually, I just want to quickly point this out. I think it's hilarious, really funny. It looks like we all have a perspective in the subcontinent, perhaps around the world. Either we want to bring people together or we want to separate them. So I think people like you and me, not to pat us on the back, we obviously want to bring people together because our first thing is that, music, art brings people together. You don't think of nationality, race, religion, all this nonsense. But there's also other people who want to just divide. So they literally do that. How can you take a music form and say, I'll take 20%, you take 20%? I mean, it's just actually hilarious. It is really funny. And it's the world's biggest idiot who's sitting there and doing that. I mean, just literally you take a play and I'll take one act, you take one act. It's like that. You can't do that. So I wish maybe one day people are more intelligent. I can't believe it.
And Cyrus, the interesting thing is that now these art forms are dependent on these distinctions, right? So the interesting thing is that this whole gharana system, which is another thing in Indian classical music, has never existed the pre-British times. But now each gharana says, no, we are the original ones. We actually, they all were the same, but now they have to emphasize on those differences to be able to stand out. So it's ironic that we're stuck also in that system itself that perpetuates it.
You're going to have a GPL, Gharana Premier League, like how you have Pakistan Super League and Indian Premier League. That's the next step. I think it's so easy to make people competitive and aggressive, and it's just so easy to just say, "Ye mera hai, wo aapka hai." I mean, what's the point of that? Let's not even get into it. I've given up. I've decided those who want love and peace, stay with us. Those who want war and death, please go ahead and do what you want, because there's no point after. How can you even argue? You can't tell me that this music should be banned, or I mean,
and now there's no excuse. I mean, with all these sort of technology and internet and digital age, and COVID has actually somehow also brought people together across borders. Like I've connected with so many Indians because the digital world has opened up. So there's no excuse when people actually use these kinds of rhetoric, right? Okay. I mean, that means you're just unaware and ignorant, and there's no kind of excuse for people like that who just deliberately try to reinforce those kind of narratives.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that one can't say you like a Pakistani fast bowler or Pakistani singer, or supposing I like your music if I'm an Indian. I mean, that all this is real comedy, which no one is able to see. That you can live in a world, call yourself democratic and democracy and egalitarian and all this, and you have to be careful. The biggest hypocrisy for me is I grew up loving a cricketer called Viv Richards, one of the greatest batsmen of all time. And even if India was playing, if Viv is batting, I want him to, beat India. It's like that. I mean, he was my idol. But if I dare say Wasim Akram, who's my other idol, I mean, that's the politicizing of our world, which is so stupid. Because cricket is a sport. It's like an art, and that's all it is. And the fact is actually bringing people together that I would like a Viv and a Wasim and the Indian team and Sri Lankan team or whatever, which you will never get from a guy who's trying to separate. And tell you can only like Viv or Wasim or Sachin or whoever. So it's the same thing with music. I think let's give up now. The people don't deserve it. People are terrible. I like animals. Listen,
I agree.
You've spoken too much, so we have no time.
I'm so sorry.
We have to take a break and bring Silvery on, the artist formerly known as Antariksh.
Silvery, thank you for reminding me to not say his name.
Yeah.
Pra.
Pra. Silvery, Pra, aa jao. Break is over. Please come on.
Hello, sir. Good morning.
Sir,
hi.
No.
Hello.
Say hi to ma'am.
I have. Hi, hello, ma'am. Yes, hi, Wajiha.
You can't call her ma'am.
Yeah, I know I can't. I'm not calling her.
You're not a 4G kid now. This is over.
But now I'm forever gonna be known as Antakrish. I just know it.
Oh my God! I'm so sorry that
I was totally.
Silvery,
you make me sound like those Western people who mispronounce names. I actually made an active decision to read your name and say it's Antariksh, and so I was trying really hard to pronounce it properly. But I still ended up mispronouncing it.
Wajiha, that's what I was trying to say. Ki in this both Sindh and Punjabi communities, you all have pet names, so you can just get on with it. The reason is so that you don't go through this whole Antakrish moment. But to be fair, it happened 3 or 4 times.
I'm so sorry.
No,
I did it. It was hilarious. I was hoping Cyrus wouldn't correct you the entire time. And you would just be saying Antakrish.
No, but he's been called worse. This is fine. Bolo, sir.
Okay, sure. All right.
I really apologize.
No, that's totally cool.
Please don't.
Yeah. Wajiha, I want to talk about, you have a new collection of songs called Hijrat. Could you please, you've sang in 5 different languages.
I was supposed to talk about it, but my iPad went dead.
I spoke too much.
So, no, he spoke too much, my iPad went dead. So now he's sending me a phone and we're trying to research what we missed out. Yeah, sorry. So please go ahead.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so Hijrat is this musical compilation that I wanted to do celebrating the diverse heritage of South Asia. It's a collection of songs in 5 different languages. So it includes Persian, Bengali, Sindhi, Pashto, and Urdu. And in fact, there's also a bit of old Hindi as well. So that would make it 6 languages. And Hijrat means migration in Urdu. And so I wanted to kind of document a lot of these songs. And these are folk songs. And so I've kind of covered them just to kind of show the rich cultural landscape that we have. And also to show that, we're of course within the South Asian region, we speak all these languages and we're the same, but we're also different and unique in our own ways. And all these songs are about the journey of love and of hope and belief. And I thought that this was something that we need in COVID times where we can't maybe physically travel and go and meet each other. And so I wanted to kind of, do this through the medium of music and through songs. And so this is something that will be released. I just performed this for a Women of the World festival that happened last week. And it was aired live. It's there, but we're going to be releasing it also like very publicly from A for Alif, a YouTube channel. It'll be coming. It's a Pakistani music studio. So I'll be releasing that also from that channel. And I would really want people to check it out and share comments and tell me what they think about it.
Done. We will promote it, even though nobody watches this podcast. Remember, we will promote it. We will never let you down.
Thank you. That would be lovely.
Silvery, you haven't mentioned that they can download the thing and watch it later. You told me to say that.
People who miss out on the live stream, please know that you can check out the podcast on any podcasting app as well. And please go follow us there as well. And review us on Google Podcasts and Apple Podcasts. That really helps a lot.
This is the worst news you can give them. Just when they thought it's over and they don't have to listen to it again. No. Oh, okay. All right.
Let's get to the AMAs.
Yes.
All right. The first one comes in from Rohit Rawat. He says, huge fan of Coke Studio Pakistan. How was the experience recording Coke Studio after the COVID restrictions? Because Coke Studio is recorded in a very intimate environment.
Great point.
Yeah.
So Coke Studio 2020 last season was very different from the previous seasons. And everyone probably knows that we couldn't actually have a huge set with lots of people. And Coke Studio was very careful about managing that protocol very quickly. And so you see last season, we're all recorded in a very intimate setting in a studio with the producer Rahat and with the artist. And then a lot of the musicians played their parts separately. So it was actually like, it's a great study for people who are interested in how to be able to do this remotely. And so it was a challenge because earlier the whole band used to get together and jam and perform. And then it was recorded live because it's live studio. But this time in 2020, it was completely remodeled and changed. And so people did their parts separately, remotely. A lot of the musicians, we were able to get musicians, like there was a Turkish drummer for last season who was playing. So he was based in Istanbul and he played on the season. Then there were Nepali musicians. Then there was a musician, the Buka player from Beirut as well. So we were interestingly, in this manner, to collaborate with musicians from over the world. Unfortunately, I don't know, inshallah, India ke saath bhi maybe that would be possible one day. But this is something that happened ironically, even though COVID was really restrictive in some sense, but in another sense, it really opened like the borders. And so that
but so then it's not live. Is Coke Studio almost live?
No, it was live. It was live in the studio in the sense that if you see all the artists were singing live there. So the video that you see, they were hearing the tracks in their ears and they were singing live.
Got it. Understood.
Yeah.
Silvery, hello. He's gone to sleep. You've got to make the shorter answers. You lost him.
I'm so sorry.
Chris,
my internet hung. My internet hung for a second.
Your internet hung. Oh, disgusting. Sounds like a dish in China.
Okay.
Go on.
Hi, can you guys hear me? Yeah,
we can hear. We're laughing at you.
All right, next
one. Carry on.
I know. Yeah, okay, cool. Next one comes in from Siddharth Dabowale. He says, question to Wajiha. This is funny. How do you drive away students who are not related to or are not talented in music? And
good question.
Because you don't want to waste your time.
Wow, that was internet.
So how do you not hurt them but still drive them away?
Wajiha, can you hear him?
Yeah, I didn't quite understand. You mean how do you discourage them?
Yeah.
Is that
the horrible talents? Come on, you must be meeting people who say, "Mere beta ko sun ek baar," and the beta will start singing, and it's horrible. What do you do?
So this is actually an interesting question.
Or how do you break it to people?
This is an interesting question because I do believe, I don't think anyone is not talented.
No, that's a Mother Teresa answer.
No, it's not. No, it's not a Mother Teresa. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. It's not. not everybody, of course, can sing, right? But if they have a passion for singing, they can learn about the art itself, right? So then in that case, if they're that passionate, their passion, whatever, maybe if it's the research, maybe it's the history, maybe it's the technical knowledge, they would be able to focus on that skill set rather than maybe that singing itself. So I would say that you find your strength, not that everybody can sing, but if you do even learn singing, it's not like singing is just about the voice. It's about so many other things that accompany it as well, right? To be a good singer. Sometimes people engage in certain vocal techniques that help them become a good singer also, right? Some people have it naturally. Some people actually like train really hard to develop a sort of technique that they're able to use their voice also. So I do think that, or sometimes people have a strong enough brain that can make them do like really sort of miraculous things. So I'm saying that, you have to kind of find your very specific skill set. You really have to work hard on what is it that you are good at and that you're able to do, and pursue that. And so it doesn't always have to be singing, but that's the thing. That's why I didn't only pursue singing. I don't think I'm like the best singer, for instance, but I know that I am able to get into other sides of poetry and of history and of understanding the art form. And so for me, that's something where I focused on. That's my strength also. So I think like that's just one way of looking at this. Is that still a Mother Teresa answer, Cyrus?
No, it's fine, but you changed the answer for boy. I thought it was a Mother Teresa answer. You're actually saying in the music world, you have a place. You don't have to be a singer, but you have a place somewhere in the culture of music. So if the person is really interested, there's always a way that they can survive and float, is what you're saying. That's fine. That's not a Mother Teresa answer. I slap myself for saying that. Although Mother Teresa, a good lady, did a lot of good work. So I don't send letters, please. God.
Mother Teresa has a very controversial history also, but we're not going to get into that.
Let's not, please.
We're not going to get into that.
I can't handle controversy.
Yeah, we can't break too many stereotypes today.
Yeah, please. Not today. Now, today we'll just sing, even if we can't sing. Bolo, Silver ji, aur kya hai?
Yes. Next one comes in from Anish Bharadwaj. This is interesting. He says, question to Wajiha, Cyrus and Silvery. Who is the one super famous musician who you feel is overrated?
Oh, that's a hard question.
Oh, God.
There's so many.
Now I'm going to play Mother Teresa.
Okay.
I'm not. She's in the business, so it's a tough one to, and as a living person, I presume, so it's a tough one to, you'll bump into them.
Yeah, I can't say anyone's overrated. Honestly, people decide who they want to hear. And so if they want to hear someone, I can't say this person is overrated. That person is famous because people want to hear him. So that's
but it says who you feel is overrated.
Who I feel is overrated. I honestly don't think that way.
Okay. Let's just skip this question.
I don't think anyone's overrated. I think that they're amazing singers and they're okay singers. And sometimes okay singers are also very special because of maybe their personalities. I like people with more personality also, right? So sometimes you like that about someone. So it's like
Mother Teresa. This is now definitely back to Mother Teresa. This is a real one. This is the very epitome of Mother Teresa answer. For semi-final placement in a Miss India or Miss Pakistan contest. Fair enough. I would say Puff Daddy. I think Puff Daddy with the name change, and I just don't get rap music. Just unfortunately just don't get it. I've tried. So yeah, but that's a whole genre of music which goes above my head.
That's a different genre.
Yeah. So
Kanye West maybe.
Electro. Oh yeah, that's true. That's more contemporary. Sorry, I'm an old man. Again, she put me down.
Yeah, we can take it to the West, I suppose. We don't have to.
Let's take it to the West. Until you start performing in New York again, we're safe.
Yeah.
Or that Korean band that my daughter showed me, who did a cover of Hey Jude, and they've sung. They're the only ones who come to the Beatles records in terms of 1 year sales.
Oh, really?
K-pop band.
K-pop.
It's a very famous
K-pop
name.
K-pop is a huge thing these days.
But they played the song for me. My daughter's 14. She played the songs, whatever the famous songs and all that.
Yeah.
The sound, I couldn't get the sound. I couldn't get that. It was after 20 seconds. I was like, I know why North Korea was formed, to get away from music like this. Makes sense. Oh, yeah. Sorry. One more. Shall we do one more? I have to do a COVID test at 11. What is the time? 10:49. Okay.
Yes. Let's go. Yeah. Let's go. We have a few.
Your Wi-Fi is hanging, Mr. Silvery.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Hello?
Hello.
Now
Hi.
we can
Sorry,
hear
my
you.
internet is. Yeah. Hi.
Yeah.
Sorry. Tarun Kaushik asks, do you miss collaborations like Rahman / Wadali brothers with Rahat Fateh Ali Khan / Abida Parveen or any other Indo-Pak collaborations? Do you think music / arts should be spared from the hostility between the two countries?
Of course. I mean, yeah, this is just, there's no place for this kind of divide in the arts. You
Just
shouldn't.
listen to our podcast. Half the time we're discussing that only.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And in fact, by the way, I will say that in COVID, people have been trying to eliminate that barrier. So, there is a lot of attempts by people to bridge that gap.
Thank God, when there's no actual physical geography, you can actually do it. There's another irony about it, that you can be as we are doing now, but except you with a talented Indian person. That would be a different thing altogether. But yeah, because there are no rules so far. Suddenly they'll give us a rule saying you can't talk.
Yeah, true.
Then you'll have to appear with a mustache and a strange hair wig or whatever.
We'll figure out a way even then.
We'll find a way. That's what. We'll find a way. Yeah. And we have Gulabu. That is always your, alternate sort of ego thing. So we'll have that character ready.
That alias is Gulabu.
I'll just be creepy Indian Uncle Sharma. Mr. Sharma. And I'll come in. Growing up in Bollywood, we always have that creepy actor who has to be the molester. So I'll be that guy. He always does these strange things. Sorry to bring down the mood. Bolo, sir.
All right. Kashin Shetty says this is all eye-opening stuff. Thanks, Wajiha. He asks, do you have a favorite song that came out of Coke Studio that isn't by Atif Aslam? I guess there are a lot of Atif Aslam songs.
Nice.
A lot of favorites in Coke Studio. Pakistan, right? Coke Studio Pakistan. Even though I really like Coke Studio India as well. There is a track called Khabaram Rasida Imshab. It's a qawwali by Farid Ayaz and Abu Muhammad. I love that track. It's from the earlier Coke Studio seasons. Ek Alif, that's another track, earlier Coke Studio season. I mean, I enjoy a lot of season 6 is one of my favorite seasons from Coke Studio Pakistan. So all the tracks in season 6 are beautiful.
Okay, well, cool.
Also, let me say, the Karachi National Stadium, the track is also quite good. They had played a test match just recently last month. So
the Groove Mirror, the anthem.
No, I'm saying the track as in the pitch. Yeah, the pitch. See, I don't know anything about the music, so I just want to feel important. But I watched the South Africa-Pakistan test match on TV, so I was able to look at I thought both the wickets were very good. This is just for other people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did they sound nice when they fell?
Yeah. Okay, you're giving the bully a bit of his medicine. Fair enough. I will take the beating quietly. I won't say anything. Yeah, they did.
All right. Tarun asks another question. He says, in India, the leftists are just called out to go to Pakistan. Does it happen in Pakistan as well? Do they say
Lovely
go
question.
to India?
Lovely question. If you appear to be a little pro-Pakistan about something, leave the country.
You leftist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does it happen in Pakistan as well? Do they say go to
India?
India?
Yeah, in Pakistan, I suppose they would say that, and they will say that, you're not patriotic enough. And that's like the simplest thing to say, like really dumb thing to say, that if you're critical of the state, they'll say, oh, you're not patriotic enough, which is obviously ridiculous because you are concerned, and that's why you raise your voice and you criticize the state. And that's something that everyone should do. I mean, we're not always here to kind of, say nice things about them, because frankly, there's nothing nice to say.
But is that the term used there? You're not patriotic enough? Because in India, it's you're anti-national. Like very often.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's what it is. That's absolutely what it is. In fact, there was just a march that was organized for Women's Day. It's called the Aurat March. It's a big deal in Pakistan, or generally in the movement of women's rights. And, a lot of women or even men who support it are also kind of, considered to be from a liberal agenda, or someone who are trying to take Pakistan away from its religious Islamic values, which is also something, again, Pakistan has to only be associated with Islam because we've created these differences in these two countries. So now we have to continue to carry that flag, right? I'm sure India maybe yehi hota hoga ki it's, just a state for instance, one particular religion, but that happens, I suppose, on both sides.
Yeah.
So that term
Obviously,
is used.
again, the secularism of those on the extreme right is wonderfully appreciated across the world. You can put them all together in a bag, because all their thinking is exactly the same, our way or no other way. Which is for me, the fundamental point of democracy is everybody's way. Let's talk. That's what democracy means. But jisko jaisa, as we say in Hindi or Urdu, but jisko jaisa doesn't apply when you're suddenly so right that it's only your way. And that's just fundamentally, what are we going to do? I say we all go to New Zealand. It's a lovely country.
True.
We can all live in peace, all subcontinent.
True. There's no COVID there either.
The cure for India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, you can throw in Sri Lanka also if you want. Put us together in a foreign country and we bond like birds.
Yeah,
I can't tell you how well we bond. Just put us
Create
in
a riot.
Yeah. Look,
I can only imagine if we were there in person, like how crazy it would have been.
Yeah, I mean, the smell would have got you after some time. But other than that, yes, it would have been fun. Yeah. Silvery, one last one.
All right.
Wajiha has a proper job and she works hard. Not like
two last ones. Sorry.
Yeah.
This one comes in from Amish Jha. He says, "What does it take to reach and perform in a Coke Studio set? It has always been my dream to do so."
Wow, what does that even mean?
Like how would he?
Does he mean the logistics?
Do
Logistic ki baat hai ya talent ki baat hai? Because there's two different points.
Let's go logistics. Because talent, we know we need a certain bit of talent. Of course.
I don't know. I just got lucky, man, and that's all I'm gonna say.
No, I think maybe there's a process. He wants to try. Is there a process like how you join?
So there is a place to be able to send, I guess, maybe your demos or something. If there is you try and reach out on the platform and send in your work if you have that. And India ke saath collaborate karna is going to be a challenge, but I don't think that there should be any harm.
No, Gulabu ji, no. This is the wrong answer. Galat jawab. It's very simple. In our part of the world, you have to pick up the phone and call uncle. You have to have influence.
Yes. That is definitely one of the ways to do it.
Sir ji ka naam kya hai? That's all he wants, so you can get in touch with him.
Sir ji ka naam? Bahut sare hai sir jis.
Qureshi Saab, just put a name out. You have to contact Qureshi Saab and there are certain requirements in terms of what has to be given and taken and all that.
But logistically, I guess you have to be noticed somehow. Like make yourself go viral.
Instagram.
Like, make yourself go viral somehow. So people notice you and hopefully even one of the producers would notice you and you'd be part of it.
But technically on Pakistan's Coke Studio, you can have non-Pakistani guests, right? As in the Turkish drummer.
Yeah.
It's just because of this India-Pakistan dynamic that we're not doing it so much.
Yeah.
There's no rule that Pakistan has.
No, not at all. Not at all. There have been in Indian singers as well.
Don't mention them. We'll never hear of them again. No, go on.
I think in season 10 there was.
Yeah, well, I would think it would be the most obvious and easy thing to do for the two countries who are neighbors.
Yeah, exactly. To be able to make music together.
Yeah. But one day, Janab, one day. We'll wait for that day.
Yes, one day. Yeah. We can meet in Kartarpur. That's the
thing.
Place
that's
where
allowed.
we could make.
That's allowed. Yeah, Captain
Go make some music.
Will protect us. Yeah. just in the tunnel or something, the actual between the
corridor.
That famous Tova Tek Singh novel play, if you guys Manto, yeah, about no man's land and the irony of the whole
thing. Exactly.
Beautifully written. Beautifully written.
Absolutely.
Silvery, read that. Where the hell are you?
Yeah, right here. I'm here.
It's about people like us, mad people from Pakistan, mad people from India. I mean, look at that. It's actually about mentally, what's the right politically correct word? Mentally
challenged.
My Khyal said only the mentally challenged are not challenged in our part of the world.
Yeah, true.
No? All right. Old man Silvery, anything else?
Yeah, one last thing. Nadeem A says, "Wow, what a coincidence. I just came to YouTube and here I see Wajiha Naqvi. I've been tripping on Coke Studio every day since the last 2 weeks." So thanks, Nadeem. And last question, I will for Nadia. Sorry, 1 second. Where was that? So sorry, I just lost this question. Yeah, okay.
Now you have to make up a question.
No. Harvesh Kasad asks, "Hey Wajiha, do you think music can play a role in bringing India and Pakistan together and have friendly ties?"
Full podcast is on that.
No. It can't.
Okay.
Yeah, don't put the pressure on the musicians, bichara. They've got enough time to pay their bills. Ye problem hi solve kar lo, yaar. In between tracks.
That's a very good point. Yeah, why should they constantly be doing these things.
But again, it's an irony that where diplomacy fails, I promise you, all the other lobbies will work. You have
True.
guys who trade, even commerce, even business communities, even artists, even sportsmen. All that works. I mean, that's why we.
And also, actually, Cyrus, I'd like to mention I'm part of a network. It's called the Southeast Asian Leadership Network, SELA. And in fact, people in India can also look it up. And that's a network that I'm a part of, which every year brings like leaders from Southeast Asia together. And so I have a lot of Indian friends that have applied to this network. And so this is a chance for Pakistani and Indians to be able to meet and be connected with and to be able to collaborate, because I've been doing that like through this network. And so, look for networks and platforms that are similar. And it's like almost like family, where like a network that's connected all over in different parts of the world as well. We have like a North American side to it as well. So
it's very famous. In fact, in Bollywood, there's a song which is a tribute to it called "My Name Is Sila." Sila ki Jawani. Isn't that it? Isn't there one? Silvery?
Yes. Yeah, correct. That's the one.
Katrina was singing about it.
There you go. See, everybody knows it.
Yeah.
Brand ambassador totally. Katrina. Yeah. All right. Listen, this has been a great pleasure. Wajiha, I know I've been pulling your leg and you've been pulling mine. That's all good. But a lot of respect. Great to know you. Great to meet you. And I hope one day people of our countries are no longer considering any issues, can just walk across the borders and hang out. Which is,
Inshallah.
Because we have a Karachi sweet wala and mithai wala and all here. So
we have Bombay bakery here.
There you go. So we already we moved a little bit here and there. Halka sa ho gaya. Let's see how far it goes. Anyway, have a great day. I'm going to take off again.
Thank you so much for having me, Cyrus. It's been such a pleasure and an honor. Like I said, I mean, I'm such a fan. I'll always be a fan. And thank you, Silvery. I'm not even going to attempt to mispronounce your name again.
But what karma for you, yeah, Silvery? Aapka naam ke wajah se everything is connected. You get it? All the memories and stories are around you, either the Silvery or the Antariksh. All the stories, and I think that's special, that name of yours.
Yeah,
okay, Wajiha.
Yeah. Thank
you so much.
No, I'm just waiting to see how many, like by the end of the year, how many more nicknames out of Cyrus do I get?
Yeah. All right. Okay. See you guys. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a good day.